chapter 8, dealing with functions. Functions are relationships between two variables. In this case, we're dealing with linear functions, linear equations. And the beginning of linear equations, we like to introduce the slope of a line. It is the rate of change between 2 points. We always say slope is the slope equals the rise over the run. It is the up, down over the right, left. Up meaning positive, down meaning negative, right meaning positive, left meaning negative. So we're going to do the up, down from one point and then the left, right or right, left to the other point. And we have some stuff. We have this. Ooh, this is really good and important. You see this term, x sub 1, y sub 1. This is not the first time you've ever seen a subscript. You see a subscript when you do the area of a trapezoid, when you have two bases. You have b sub 1 plus b sub 2. And then you have x sub 2, y sub 2. And what this is saying is points are written x comma y. So we see the x and the y in each of the points, but we have this sub 1. That just means point 1 is x sub 1, y sub 1. It's the x value in the first point and the y value in the first point. And then we have x sub 2, y sub 2. And that is point 2. So you always have 2 points when you want to find the slope. It is the rate of change between those two things. So when you see x sub 2, that is the x value in the second point and the y value in the second point, y sub 2. And we're going to find the difference, the rate of change between the y coordinates over the difference between, or the rate of change between the x coordinates. This is how you find the y's over the x's, the rise over the run. The up down is on the y-axis, the right left is on the x-axis. Positive slopes, so we can see different types of slopes. We have, oh, this is good. So a line looking like that is going to have a positive slope. Going left to right is going up. This would be a negative slope. Going down left to right. This is going to be a zero slope. And this, a horizontal line is a zero slope, and a vertical line would be no slope. And I think of it as skiing. This is a zero. Those are flat. You like skiing flat surfaces, and you definitely don't want to ski the vertical, the no slope. That's no skiing on that slope. So collinear points, points that lie on the same line. Collinear, meaning multiple points on the line. All right, so when we want to find the slope, there are a number of techniques that we're going to use. We're going to use this formula, y sub 2 minus y sub 1 over x sub 2 minus x sub 1. Now, it doesn't matter which point is which point. This could be point 1 and this can be point 2. So this is going to be x sub 1, y sub 1. This is going to be x sub 2, y sub 2. But we can reverse it. We can flip it. Those are interchangeable. There's no specific order. But if this is going to be my x sub 1 value, this must be my y sub 1 value. So that's the only thing that you have to be careful about, is making sure that those are in that form. So we're going to take the difference of y's over the difference of x's. And we're going to plug in those values, and we'll do a couple examples. Find the slope of the line. Good. Example 2 is the same. Example 3 is the same also. So our first step is, let's make this x sub 1, y sub 1, x sub 2, y sub 2, and let's write the formula. Y sub 2 minus y sub 1 over x sub 2 minus x sub 1. So we're going to take the y sub 2 value. The y sub 2 value is this. And we're going to write that, and that is negative 4. So negative 4 minus, sorry, not pen, highlighter, lots of highlighting, lots of going back and forth. Minus, so we do the minus sign, and now we're going to do the y sub 1 value. The y sub 1 value is going to be negative 6, so that is different from the negative that is in the blue. That is where most students will make their mistakes, is they will assume that negative in the 6 represents the negative in front of the y. It's y sub 2 minus y sub 1. So that will be very, very important for you to distinguish. Most students will make their mistakes there. Then we have x sub 2. My x sub 2 value is 2. So let's write my x sub 2 value minus, that's the blue, that's part of the equation, minus, and now we do my x sub 1 value. What color am I missing? Green, yellow? Oh, I've already used blue. Let's do, what do we want? Orange? I like orange. Flyers, colors. Minus my x sub 1. And my x sub 1 is going to be 5. So that's 5. And oh, my 2 got my purple. Sorry. Lavender, purple, whatever you want to call that. And let's do that. All right. Now once we have that, now we can simplify. We've got double signs. 4 minus negative 6 is 4 plus 6. The two negatives combine to make a positive. And then you have 2 minus 5. So 4 plus 6 is 2. 2 minus 5 is negative 3. And that is my slope. Now I can have 2 over negative 3. I can have negative 2 over 3. That is also acceptable. Or I can have negative 2 over 3. Both are all the same. There's one negative, whether it be in the numerator, denominator, or outside. So now we're going to go a little bit faster. X sub 1, y sub 1, x sub 2, y sub 2. So my formula, y sub 2 minus y sub 1 over x sub 2 minus x sub 1. My y sub 2 is 4 minus my y sub 1 is 6 over x sub 2 is negative 5 minus my x sub 1. So we get 4 minus 6 is negative 2, negative 5 plus 3 is negative 2, and we must simplify that to 1. If we can simplify it to a whole number, that's fine. That's not a problem at all. We're okay with that. Sorry. Had to close the door because the noise from the bathrooms and the hallway was getting on my nerves. X1, x sub 1, y sub 1, x sub 2, y sub 2. So y sub 2 minus y sub 1 over x sub 2 minus x sub 1. Y sub 2, that's the y value in the second point, minus the y value in the first point over the x value in the second point, minus the x value in the first point. Negative 2 minus 1 is negative 3. 2 minus 0 is 2. And we can just leave it like that. Box it. You don't have to change it anything. You don't have to move the negative around. Just keep it simple. Find the slope of the line through the given points. X sub 1, y sub 1, x sub 2, y sub 2. I like labeling just so my eye can see when I rewrite the formula, and I can find it a little bit clearer. You ever notice that I do straight lines for my y's up on the top, but then when I write the equation, I write it in script? Interesting. Y sub 2 is 6 minus y sub 1 is 2 over x sub 2, which is 4, minus x sub 1 is 1. 6 minus 2 is 4. 4 minus 1 is 3. Done. Do not make it a mixed number. Do not make it a mixed number. Nobody wants to see. Do not give it as 1 1/3. No, do not give it as a mixed number. X sub 1, y sub 1, x sub 2, y sub 2, negative y sub 2 minus y sub 1 over x sub 2 minus x sub 1. Y sub 2 is negative 2 minus my y sub 1 value over my x sub 2 minus my x sub 1. That is negative 3 over 6, which can be simplified to negative 1/2. I don't care where the negative is, there just needs to be only one negative. X sub 1, y sub 1, x sub 2, y sub 2. Y sub 2 minus y sub 1 over x sub 2 minus x sub 1. My y sub 2 is 0 minus my y sub 1. X sub 2 is 0 minus my x sub 1, which is negative 1. That gives me negative 5 over positive 1, which can be simplified to negative 5. We can give slope as a whole number, just not a mixed number, and not as a decimal. No decimal, no mixed number, whole number, and fractions are okay. X sub 1, y sub 1, x sub 2, y sub 2, that's an x. Y sub 2 minus y sub 1 over x sub 2 minus x sub 1. We have 7 minus 3 over 2 minus 4. That is 4 over negative 2, which simplifies to negative 2. A slope of negative 2. X sub 1, y sub 1, x sub 2, y sub 2, 2. I'm just trying to stay consistent by writing the formula each time. And if you write it each time, then you're going to remember it better. But if you only write it once, you probably won't remember it. So I'm going to continue to write it. Y sub 2 is 2 minus 2 over negative 1 minus 5, which is 0 over negative 6, which simplifies to 0. That is a 0 slope. Different from no slope. Those are two distinctly different values. X sub 1, y sub 1, x sub 2, y sub 2, y sub 2 minus y sub 1 over x sub 2 minus x sub 1. Y sub 2 is 2 minus my y sub 1, which is negative 4, over x sub 2 minus my x sub 1, which is negative 3. That gives me 6 over 4, which can be simplified to 3 over 2. They like the 3 over 2 today. That's like the third time we've had a 3 over 2 of some value. X sub 1, y sub 1, x sub 2, y sub 2. Y sub 2 minus y sub 1 over x sub 2 minus x sub 1. Negative 6 minus 2 over 7 minus negative 5. Negative 8 over 12. That can be reduced. We can make it negative 4 over 6, which is negative 2 over 3. There's our 3 and 2 ratio again. Yeah, there you go. X sub 1, y sub 1, x sub 2, y sub 2, y sub 2 minus y sub 1 over x sub 2 minus x sub 1. 0 minus 4 over negative 3 minus 1, which is negative 4 over negative 4, which gives me positive 1. Two negatives make a positive when multiplying or dividing. X sub 1, y sub 1, x sub 2, y sub 2, y sub 2 minus y sub 1 over x sub 2 minus x sub 1. Y sub 2 is 6 minus 4 over negative 4 minus 4. 2 over negative 8, which reduces to negative 1/4. That negative can go sort of halfway up. You just need to see a negative somewhere in that fraction. X sub 1, y sub 1, x sub 2, y sub 2, y sub 2 minus y sub 1 over x sub 2 minus x sub 1. Y sub 2 is 0 minus negative 1 over 6 minus 8, which is 1 over negative 2. x sub 1, y sub 1, x sub 2, y sub 2, y sub 2 minus y sub 1 over x sub 2 minus x sub 1 is the equation that you use to find slope. Y sub 2 is 4 minus negative 1 over negative 2 minus 3, which is 5 over negative 5, which simplifies to negative 1. We're seeing a lot of repeat answers. X sub 1, y sub 1, x sub 2, y sub 2. Y sub 2 minus y sub 1 over x sub 2 minus x sub 1. Negative 4 minus 4 over 7 minus 7. Woohoo! Watch this. Negative 8 over 0. That is no slope. You cannot have 0 in the denominator. You can't have negative 8 slices if you have no slices not to eat. So no zeros in the denominator. Different from 0 in the numerator is okay. Find the slope of the line with the equation 2x plus 3y equals 6. First, find any 2 points on the line. So we can find, we're finding the intercepts in there. We're plugging in a value. You're solving for its other variable. Then you're creating a coordinate or a true point or a solution to the equation. This is the equation. So 0, 2, 0 for x, 2 for y, would make that equation true. And then we find the y-intercept when we plug in 0 for y, and we get a solution. Once you have 2 solutions, we can plug it in the slope formula. And we can make this 0.1. So this is x sub 1, y sub 1, and this is 0.2. So this would be x sub 2, y sub 2. And then we can plug it in. And we can do 0 minus 2 over 3 minus 0 and get a slope of negative 2/3. So that's a lot of work, and I did not split these problems up very well. I thought it was going to be easier than that because all of these were in slope-intercept forms, and I thought you already knew that, which you don't. So let's find points. Plugging in 0. So y equals 2 times 0 minus 1. Y equals negative 1. My first point is 0. Come on. Come on. 0, negative 1. Then I'm going to plug in 0 for y. So the equation now becomes 0 equals 2x minus 1. Let's add 1 to both sides. You get 1 equals 2x. Divide by 2. And you're already giving me fractions. You're giving me fractions. Okay. Hi-ya. All right. So when x equals 1/2, y equals 0. All right, so my 2 points, this is point 1 is, what did we say, 0, negative 1, point 1, and point 2 is 1/2, 0. Point 2, didn't know there was going to be fractions, but we are in chapter 8. You should know fractions. So this is going to be my x sub 1, y sub 1. This is going to be my x sub 2, y sub 2. So we're going to plug it into y sub 2 minus y sub 1 over x sub 2 minus x sub 1. Y sub 2 is 0 minus my y sub 1 over x sub 2, which is 1/2, minus 0 is my x value. That creates 1 over 1/2. Oh, what does that equal? Well, here's some more math for you. We can rewrite this as 1 divided by 1/2. We see that we have we have the numerator divided by, we can just switch the division type, 1/2. 1/2. And now we know that we can't divide fractions. In order to simplify, we're going to change division to multiplication by taking the reciprocal of the right term. So we get the reciprocal of 1/2 is 2. So we get a slope of 2. Whew, that was very time consuming. But the slope of that one, look how long that was. All right. And we're going to have to do this 15 more times. X equals 0, we get y equals 3 times 0 plus 2. Y equals 2. This is nice and easy. And now let's plug in. Let's plug in 0 for y. We get 0 equals 3x plus 2. Oh, we're going to get another fun fraction. Kids, you didn't know you were going to do a lot of fraction work today. Divide by 3, negative 2/3 equals x. So my other point is going to be negative 2/3 comma 0. So that's the international sound for separating work. So my 2 points, what's my first point? 0, 2 is 0.1. And negative 2/3 0 is 0.2. So we got x sub 1, y sub 1, x sub 2, y sub 2. So we got y sub 2 minus y sub 1 over x sub 2 minus x sub 1. Let's do our y sub 2 is 0 minus 2 over negative 2/3 minus 0. So that's going to be negative 2. Oh, sorry, that's the wrong color. So that's going to be negative 2 over negative 2/3, which can be converted to negative 2 divided by negative 2/3, which is negative 2 times negative 3/2. 2 in the denominator is going to cancel with the 2 in the numerator. Negative and the negative make positive. So my answer is a slope of positive 3. That's a lot of work. That is a whole lot of work. Keeping the spacing. Plugging in x equals 0, we get y equals 4 minus 2 times 0, which is y equals 4, which gives me the point 0, 4 as my first point. And then we're going to plug in 0 for y. We get 0 equals 4 minus 2x. Let's subtract the 4. Negative 4 equals negative 2x divided by negative 2. We get 2 equals x. There we go. That's a nice friendly number. So, 2, 0. Now let's make this, let's shrink this a little bit. You all are leaving me. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. There you go. You got on. You got on the video. Easy. Don't get crazy. Mr. Mac is still Mr. Mac. He takes this stuff seriously. 0, 4 and 2, 0. X sub 1, y sub 1, x sub 2, y sub 2. I'll grade your tests today and throw them in later on tonight.
Thank you.
Yep, you bet. Thank you for being here. Okay. I appreciate your consistency of being here. Y sub 2 minus y sub 1 over x sub 2 minus x sub 1. So we got 0 minus 4 over, you're welcome, 2 minus 0, which gives us negative 4 over 2, which simplifies to negative 2. Nice and easy. That wasn't too bad. That was a nice one, a gentile, as we say. So let's do this. Find 2 points. We can find a point by plugging in a value for x. 0 is always the easiest value to plug in for x. So we get y equals 6. And so our point is when x is 0, y is equal to 6. Now we're going to find a second point. Now, look, you don't have to plug in 0 for y. I could, let's do that. I could just plug in a different value for x. Let's plug in 1 this time. So we get y equals 6 minus 3 times 1. And we get 6 minus 3, so y equals 3. So that secondary point is 1, 3. Ooh, look how easy that was. Way easier. Now my points are 0, 6, and 1, 3. So don't feel that you have to plug in 0 for y. That's just one way. This is probably a whole lot easier, and I probably will continue with that technique. So now I have my 2 points. I have my formula y sub 2 minus y sub 1 over x sub 2 minus x sub 1. My y sub 2 is 3 minus my my y sub 2, which is 6, over x sub 2, 1 minus my x sub 1 is 1. You get 3 minus 6 is negative 3, 1 minus 0 is 1, and a slope of negative 3. All right, not bad. So, ooh, yeah, of course. And then they switch it on me. Now they switch the format. This is in standard form. I have my x and y on the left side and my constant on the right. All of my a, b, and c, my coefficients of my 2 variables, along with my constant, are whole numbers, or integers, excuse me, which are whole numbers and their opposites. But we can still find values. X, we can plug in 0 for x. 6 times 0 plus 2y equals 3. We get 0 plus 2y equals 3. 2y equals 3. Divide by 2. Y equals 3 halves. So there's my first point. When x is 0, y is 3 halves. That's not very fun. Now we can plug in 0 for y, and we get 6x plus 2 times 0 equals 3. 6x plus 0 equals 3. 6x equals 3. Divide by 6. And we get x equals 1 half. So my second point is 1 half comma 0. Oh yeah, this is going to be real fun. So my 2 points are 0, 3 halves, and 1 half, 0. So this is my x sub 1, my y sub 1. This is my x sub 2, y sub 2. You have y sub 2 minus y sub 1 over x sub 2 minus x sub 1. Y sub 2 is 0 minus 3 halves over 1 half minus 0, which simplifies to negative 3 halves over 1 half. Let's again convert that negative 3 halves divided by 1 half. We're going to turn the division into multiplication by taking the reciprocal of 1 half. And now we can cross cancel, and you're left with negative 3 is the slope. Not easy. I was also somewhat long-winded. We sort of rolled into the other space. Good. Or sound effects. X equals 0, so 2 times 0 minus 5y equals 10. Negative 5y equals 10. Divide by negative 5. And you get y equals negative 2. So we get the point 0, negative 2. Let's choose wisely. Let's see if we can understand how our choices will affect our answer. So if I was going to, oh yeah, let's pick y equals 0. That's going to work out okay. 2x minus 5 times 0 equals 10 gives us 2x equals 10. Divide by 2, x equals 5. So here was a good one where it actually worked out and gave us 2 nice points. So we have the point 0, negative 2, and we have the point 5, comma 0. This is my x sub 1, y sub 1. This is my x sub 2, y sub 2. And we're going to use the formula y sub 2 minus y sub 1 over x sub 2 minus x sub 1. y sub 2 is 0 minus negative 2 over 5 minus 0. That gives me 2 over 5, 2/5. That was a bad 5. So a slope of 2/5 for that one. Oh, I was going to say that was going to be really cool. I don't know if you can see that, but that was kind of neat. That was really pretty impressive. Oh no, it's in Santa Barbara. Yikes. We're going to Santa Barbara this weekend, but we're going to Super Rica. It's the best tacos in Santa Barbara. If you get a chance, kids, go check out Taco Rica in Santa Barbara if you ever have to go to beach volleyball up there, like Mr. Mac. Let's plug in 0. We get 3 times 0 plus 6y equals 12. That gives us 6y equals 12. Divide by 6. Y equals 2. So that point is 0, 2. We're using the x and y values. They have a relationship. When x is 0, y is 2. And now let's plug in 0 for y into that equation. We get 3x plus 6 times 0 equals 12, which simplifies to 3x equals 12. Divide by 3. X equals 4. So when x is 4, y is 0. And we can, keeping it tight. So our 2 points, 0, 2, and 4, 0. And we're going to use this as my x sub 1, y sub 1. This is my x sub 2, y sub 2. So y sub 2 minus y sub 1 over x sub 2 minus x sub 1. My y sub 2 value is 2 minus, my y sub 2 value is 0 minus 2 over my x sub 2, which is 4 minus 0, which gives me negative 2 over 4. That can be simplified to negative 1/2. We must reduce all fractions. Let's make x 0. We get 0 minus 2y equals 4. Negative 2y equals 4. Divide by negative 2. Y equals negative 2. So that point is 0, negative 2. Let's plug in y equals 0. Oh yeah, look at that. Y equals 0 gives us x minus 2 times 0 equals 4, which is x minus 0 equals 4, and x equals 4. So my other coordinate is going to be 4, 0. Close to the other problem. 0, negative 2, and 4, 0. This is my x sub 1, y sub 1, x sub 2, y sub 2. Y sub 2 minus y sub 1 over x sub 2 minus x sub 1. You get negative 2. God, why do I keep doing that? I keep looking at y sub 2 and writing my y sub 1. Y sub 2 is 0 minus my y sub 1, which is negative 2, over x sub 2 minus 0, which gives me 2 over 4, which reduces to positive 1/2. Yep. Okay. Here's a little advice, a little hint here. We can look at this equation. This could be 2 ways. It can be written y equals 0x plus 5. You can look at that problem as that. Or you can look at it as 0x plus y equals 5. Either way is okay. I'm going to leave it in this form because when I plug in x equals 0, I'm going to get y equals 0 times 0 plus 5, or y equals 5. So my first coordinate is 0, 5. And then when I plug in 0, I'm going to choose a different x. I'm going to put x equals 1. So I get y equals 0 times 1 plus 5, and I get y equals 0 plus 5, y equals 5. So my other point is 1 comma 5. Here's the thing is you couldn't plug in, you can't plug in 0 for y. And let me tell you why. Here's a little things to remember, things to think about. We're going to call this be careful. We have the formula y equals 5. If we plug in y equals 0, we get 0 equals 5. And what's wrong with that? That doesn't work. So we can't plug in any value for y. Y is already 5. So we would have to plug in always have to plug in for x. I'm going to move this because we still have to find our slope group. Let's make it a little bit smaller. Let's push you down for a little bit. Push you down. Let's find the slope. Our 2 points are 0, nope. Yeah, 0, 5, and 1, 5. So I got my, ooh, that hurt my arm. x1, y1, x sub 2, y sub 2. So we have y sub 2 minus y sub 1 over x sub 2 minus x sub 1. My y sub 2 value is 5 minus 5 over 1 minus 0, which gives us, we're going to move that a little bit more, which gives me 0 over 1, which gives me a slope of 0. My slope is 0. But definitely be careful. Be careful about trying to plug in for y there. You can't plug in for y because when you do plug any other value, you're going to get a false statement. So, and the reason being is it's going to be a horizontal line. And we know that horizontal lines have slopes of 0. Yes, it's a flat ski thing. We want to stay within the ski. So same thing here. We only have one variable. So notice each of these statements only have one variable. That should be a red flag. Be careful when you only have one variable. When it's y, it's going to be horizontal. When it's x, it's going to be vertical. All horizontal lines will have 0 slope. All vertical lines will have no slopes. But we can look at this equation as y plus 2 equals 0. Well, we can minus 2. Let's subtract 2. And we can have 0x plus y equals negative 2. I don't know. That's a nice way. If we plug in 0, we get y equals negative 2. So that's my first point, 0, negative 2. And then if we plug in x equals 1, we get 0 times 1 plus y equals negative 2, and that gives us y equals negative 2. So my second point is going to be 1, negative 2. We notice that it doesn't matter what we plug in, we're getting the same y value because it doesn't matter what you plug in for x. Y is always going to equal negative 2. So 0, negative 2, 1, negative 2, my x sub 1, my y sub 1, x sub 2, y sub 2. In the formula, y sub 2 minus y sub 1 over x sub 2 minus x sub 1. That is negative 2 minus negative 2, which is 1 minus 0. And negative 2 minus negative 2 is 0 over 1, which gives me a slope of 0. And we knew it was going to be 0 because we knew that there was only one variable, it was y, so we knew my line was going to be a horizontal line. So same thing here when we have x equals 1, we can see it as x plus 0y equals 1. So we're going to plug in. We can't plug in for x because if we plug in 0 for x, that's going to make a false statement. So when we only have x as a single variable, then we need to only plug in for y. So y, we're going to plug in 0. When we plug in, we get x plus 0 times 0 equals 1, or x equals 1. So we get 1 comma 0. And then we'll plug in y equals 1. And we again see that x plus 0 times 1 equals 1. We get x equaling 1. So when x equals 1, it can also, y can equal 1. Now that's where these are not functions. This is a weird situation. Wait a second. I plugged in 1 and got 0. If I plug in 1, shouldn't I get 0 every time? Well, that's why this is a peculiar thing. This is a vertical line. So my 2 points are 1, 0, and 1, 1. So I have x sub 1, y sub 1, x sub 2, y sub 2. And using the formula to find slope, we have my y sub 2 is 1 minus 0 over 1 minus 1, which simplifies to 1 over 0. Can't have 0 in the denominator, so this is no slope. And any vertical line is going to have a slope of no slope. Here we again notice we need to be observant. We see that we only have one variable. When we have one variable, that line is going to be either horizontal or vertical. So let's move the 3 over just for fun. 2x equals 3. So let's divide by 2. We get, let's leave it as 2x equals 3. You'll see. Let's do this. And let's pick, you're not going to plug in for, this statement is going to be 0y plus 2x equals 3. So we're going to plug in a y value of 0. We get 0 times 0 plus 2x equals 3. That's 2x equals 3. Divide by 2, divide by 2. X equals 3 halves. So my first coordinate is 3 halves for x and 0 for y. Now if I plug in a y equals 1, we get 0 times 1 plus 2 times x equals 3. And you see that it ends up with 2x equals 3 again, divide by 2, and x equals 3 halves again, which is weird. So it doesn't matter what we plug in for y, x is always going to equal 3 halves. So my two coordinates are going to be 3 halves 0 and 3 halves 1. This is my x sub 1, this is my y sub 1, my x sub 2, y sub 2. So we use the formula y sub 2 minus y sub 1 over x sub 2 minus x sub 1. My y values are 1 minus 0 over 3 halves minus 3 halves, which gives me 1 over 0, which simplifies to no slope. So that example has no slope. Any vertical line, that's a ski slope so steep that you don't want to ski it. All right, draw the line through the point P, negative 1, 2. So we're going to make that point negative 1, 2. That's not a good color. Negative 1, 2. And then with a slope of 3. So remember, slope is rise over run. So if the slope is 3, we would write it as a fraction, 3 over 1, and rise is up, down. So remember, rise, run. When you rise, you go up and down, and when you run, you go right and left. So I call this slope ease. So positive 3 on the rise would be up 3, and positive 1 would be right 1. So this is how we move from point to point. So I have my first point, and from there, I'm going to go up 3, 1, 2, 3, and right 1. And I get my second point. Once I get 2 points, I can graph that line. I don't like how they did run, rise, how they went right 1 and then up 3. That is illogical and not common sense. Rise over run. So we're going to plot our point. A is 2, 1. So 2 on X, 1 on Y takes us to that point. Now we have a slope of 2. So 2 as a fraction is 2 over 1. And we do rise over run. So positive 2 is up 2. And run, positive 1 is going to be right 1. Positive is to the right. Negative is to the left. In rise, positive is up. Up is going to be positive. Down is going to be negative for our rise, up and down. And then run, right is going to be positive. And left is going to be negative. So I have positive 2 over positive 1. So up 2, 1, 2, right 1 takes me here. And I can do it again, up 2, right 1. And then I connect them, and there's my line. So that's why we're doing this, is now we can find every solution to that. It's so nice. So let's plot the point. B, negative 2 on the X, positive 3 on the Y, takes me here. I have a slope of negative 3. Negative 3 is equal to negative 3 over positive 1. We wouldn't write 2 negatives because 2 negatives would make a positive. So we have to choose where we want it. We could have done that. Let's show this one too. This will be fun. So converting it to rise, negative would be down 3, and then positive 1 is right 1. So we go down 3 to find my next point from there. 1, 2, 3, and then right 1. So that's where my point, my next point is. We can go down 3, right 1. If we connect the dots, that wasn't a connect the dots. If we connect the dots, excuse me, and let's look at this. Remember how I said let's save that 3 over negative 1? Well, positive 3 is up 3, and negative 1 is left 1. So going from this point here, what if I went up 3, 1, 2, 3, oh, look at that, up 3, hey, it stayed on the line. So it didn't matter which one the negative got. We just needed to only do one negative. So the negative either goes in the numerator or the negative goes in the denominator. It doesn't go into both of them. Let's make the point. Positive 1, negative 4 takes me there. A slope of 4 is 4 over 1, which is up 4, right 1. We should go that fast. 1, 2, 3, 4, right 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, right 1. We got 3 points. I like to do 3 points. That tends to be a little bit more accurate for people. And you know, I forgot to do arrows. I think I forgot to do arrows here. 3 points gives it a little bit better of a line. So let's do the point. Negative 3 on the X, negative 2 on the Y takes us here. A slope of 2/3, which is up 2, right 3, up 2, right 3, gets us to the origin. Up 2, right 3 takes us here. Connect them. That was bad connecting. We will update it and improve it. Yeah, that doesn't do justice, but there is your line. Negative 4, 2, 3, 4 in the X, positive 1 on the Y takes you here. Slope of negative 1/2 can be negative 1 over 2, which is down 1, right 2. So down 1, right 2, down 1, right 2, and connect the dots. A little bit better. Little bit better. Arrows just because that's how you should do it. Good. We have point F, which is 3 on the x, 0 on the y. We have negative 3/4. I'm just going to give it a negative. That's down 3, right 4, down 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. And I'm just going to do 2 points today because we got to get done with this lesson. -2, -1, -2 on the x, -1 on the y, and a slope of 2/5 up to right 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, up to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There we go, and we're able to connect the dots. That's all we're doing is connecting the dots, and we'll notice that all the points will share along that line. So 2/5 up to right 5. -5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, up to +2 on the y. We're going to have a slope of -2, which is -2/1, which is down 2, right 1, down 2, right 1, down 2, right 1. That's how fast we can graph. Oh, that was really good. Crush that line when we have the slope and a point. That's why we're always looking for a slope and a point. If we ever get that, that's called point slope. We tend to use slope intercept, which is the slope and a y-intercept where the line crosses the y-axis, and that point is a point. 2 on the x, -3 on the y takes us here. Slope of -1 is -1/1, which is down 1, right 1 in slope ease. Down 1, right 1, down 1, right 1. Oh, almost. Not as perfect. Now we're good. Yep. Arrows. Let's make those points a little bit bigger. And that's it. Let's go. Yeah. This is a lot of a review from pre-algebra. You should know many of these ideas and concepts. But I will tell you that this part was probably pretty good for you to learn. There were probably some things that I taught you about horizontal and vertical lines. So good luck with your work.